Welcome to Insights in Sound, where we talk to the people behind the scenes, behind the technology, and behind the music. People you may not know, but you should. And please check out insightsinsound.com for a full list of our podcasts and YouTube series.
And big thanks to our sponsors, Mackie, Roland, Mojave Audio, Ozbot.
I'm here with Neil Citron. I would call you sort of a guitar player's guitar player. You've worked with people like Steve Vai, Steve Lukather, Larry Carlton. You've done a bunch of music supervision, film work, stuff like that. You've really kind of been all over the map, musically speaking.
Yes, all over.
And I know you've been doing this for, as you put it to me recently, years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since I was a kid.
Okay.
I think the first mic I put up was in '72.
Yow. Okay. Let's start there. Okay. Let's start with a little bit of just like your background, how the hell you ended up here.
Well, funny enough, I wanted to be a baseball player. It seems like everybody I know wanted to do something before we fell into this.
Right? Like veterinarian or something. I mean, it's always something weird like that. Baseball player.
I was 11 years old and I had the highest batting average in the league.
Ooh.
But I was short, I'm still short, but I luckily made it to 5'7" as an adult, but I was nothing. And so when it then stopped being where you had to play, and it was by picking, I was too short and no one picked me.
So you were like the last guy picked for the team.
I was 13 years old and I couldn't play with anybody, so I went, So I had played clarinet and saxophone as a kid, and I was in, just to get some musical whatever. So I have a cousin who's kind of famous, Howard Leese, who was in Heart and Bad Company, and Howard said to me, "Do you ever want to get laid? You stop playing the clarinet, start playing guitar." So it's my cousin Howard who turned me on to Jeff Beck and all that stuff, all the early Yardbirds and all, and Deep Purple. I mean, you name it. That's all my music introduction was through Howard. And I started playing guitar at 13. So it was kind of I wanted to do this. That couldn't happen. It was too short, couldn't get picked. Okay, I'll do this. And so
as far as picking up girls go, it's either sports or it's music,
right?
Right.
So it kind of worked out okay.
Yeah, okay.
Funny enough, out of all the things, I can't believe the wonderful people that we get to meet in the music business.
It's the best.
And when sometimes you meet your idols, you say, well, be wary of meeting your idols because they can not be the wonderful person you think they are, because musically they're wonderful. I have yet to find that. Everyone's been wonderful. I haven't met a bad person yet.
Yes, absolutely.
It's crazy. And I was at NAMM, I'm kind of sidestepping, but I was at NAMM years ago, and there's this poor little bass player playing in a booth, a little small booth with a lamp this big, ripping it up, and no one was visiting him. And it was the first NAMM I ever went to. So I went and I said, "Hi, I'm Neil Citron." He goes, "Do you have a band?" "Yeah, I have a band. Do you play guitar?" "I play guitar." And we're talking. Anyways, it was Pistorius. And he was so nice to me. I had no idea who he was. He never said his name. I never asked. And that just says it all. It's like, that's who they are like.
That really is. And we come from similar background. Both worked at Cherokee Studios for a while. I remember actually getting thrown in on a session at Cherokee. And I love to tell this story because it was the Monkees, right? And it was the 80s. It was their comeback album. They were already like, nobody paid attention to the Monkees, right? And there's this producer in there, and a very droll, dry British guy, and we're chatting about stuff. And I said, I suggested a particular microphone. And he said, "Oh, yeah, that's what we used on Squeeze." I'm like, wait, who are you?
Right.
Turned out his name was Roger Basharian. Wonderful, wonderful guy. I'm still in touch with him to this day.
Nice.
Did all of the Nick Lowe stuff. Did the first Elvis Costello record.
Oh my God, great stuff.
And again, but it's like the same thing. You never assume anybody is nobody because everybody is somebody.
And they've got one of my favorite compressors is a 165A, and I met the guy who invented it at Sapphire Group.
Yep. That's another thing. We're both sort of tech geeks.
And I like gear. I like gear.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because, and again, I've had this conversation with so many people. I love gear too, but it's not about the gear, and it's never been about the gear. Why do we love the gear? Because the gear enables us to get the sounds we hear in our heads.
And also gear envy when I was a little kid. Well, you walked into Cherokee and you went, okay, this is what I want.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
years and years of picking up one PCM 42 and a PCM 70 and and you pick up the gears.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's funny. But as a guitar player, you get geared out because you want this guitar and this overdrive and this amp and this, and I think that's where it started with me.
Well, we were just talking about the Helix that you have down there. That's another, and it's funny, actually, I just had a conversation very recently with Marcus Ryle, who was, on the team that invented that. And he said something really funny, because Marcus is a keyboard player.
Yeah.
And he said, in certain ways, I really envy guitar players because the guitar is such an expressive instrument in so many different ways. Like he said, like if you're a piano player, you get to choose what note you're going to play, how loud it's going to be, and when you stop it. That's about it,
Okay.
But if you're a guitar player, you have all this nuance,
Yeah, that's true.
And you definitely, I've heard your playing, so just a little bit of your background. I know you've played with Quiet Riot for a while. You also have done a lot of soundtrack work, a lot of movie work, which I think, again, let's talk about movie work because that's a completely different animal than rock and roll.
Yeah, I fell into that weirdly enough. A drummer that I had played with, Walter Garces, he was in Electric Prunes, by the way. There's a weird band.
Oh, I love it. I had Too Much to Dream last
That's
night.
right. That's right. He had got the gig of teaching the actor drums. The guy was in New York, and he came to L.A. because they were filming in L.A. And they said, hey, do you know anybody that teaches guitar? And so Walter put me up for the gig, and it was for That Thing You Do with Tom Hanks. And so I went to, on Ocean Park Boulevard, I went to their office, the temporary office they had, and I went in and I met Steve Zahn and, he was the first guy I worked with. And I was showing him some guitar chords, and I was teaching him. He was sort of the better guy. He could actually play a little bit. So I was going to make him be the George Harrison guy. So he'd play the high little chords, and then I teach the other guy kind of the
strums and the
thing.
rhythm. Yeah.
So I'm going like this, and in walks Tom Hanks. He goes, "What are you showing him?" And I go, "Well, this is George, and this would be John, something," because he played. And I was shocked. He's really good. It was really funny. So he wrote that film. It was the first film he directed, and he knew so much about that stuff. So anyways, through that, then it was My Big Fat Greek Wedding 1 and 2, and it was Mamma Mia. And so anything that came up through their office that had music, I somehow got involved in. The last thing we did was Ricky and the Flash, which was Meryl Streep. I taught her how to play guitar for the film, and I was the MD on it. And it was Jonathan Demme film, and it was, he did one other film after and then passed away.
It's interesting to me because a lot of the actors and comedians and other people that we've met in the industry, nobody is one-dimensional. We're all multifaceted. First time I met Keanu Reeves was before he was Keanu. He was just some guy. He was the roommate of somebody I was writing songs with in L.A. in the 80s. And she said, "Oh, we wanted to do a bass part." She said, "Yeah, you can use Keanu's bass." And then Keanu came in. I didn't know who he was. But again, it's like all of these actors, artists, everything, they're all multifaceted. They all play. Because music is just another form of self-expression.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And so, so anything that they did, I got involved with it. Really, like I always tell everybody, I didn't try and do that. I just fell into it because of Walter, and then they liked what I did, and so it just kind of continued from there.
But it's mostly when you say just that kind of stuff, you're mostly coaching people and teaching people how to play
and how to look like they've played for years.
Right there. That's what I wanted to ask you about, because it's not like just let me teach you the chords. It's like let me teach you the confidence, right?
Right, and how they. I had Meryl Streep changing pickups while she was playing, which is something real guitar players do, and actors don't usually.
Right.
So there was also finger vibrato. I worked on that. There's a piece that I did with Meryl where it's acoustic guitar, and I padded the strings to play instead of using a pick. And I was just goofing around. I was showing her, and she goes, "Okay, you got to teach me that." She filmed me doing it, and she came back and did it perfectly because she was a good study. Really
she's a consummate actress, you know. And I think to a certain extent, that's part of it is that, like artists like us, when we watch somebody playing, an actor playing guitar, we'll pick it up right away if it's faked.
Yeah.
It's that's not the chord.
That's right.
That kind of thing, right? And so teaching them that attitude is almost more important than teaching them the actual music in that sense.
That's right. And the funny thing about going back to the wonders from That Thing You Do, I guess I did a pretty good job because the Japanese thought they were a real band. And they actually flew to Japan and played a gig.
I love it.
but they weren't really great enough to play the gig by themselves, really. So what we did was we piped the actual guitar part through their amp and through the bass amp. And the drummer, that guy could actually play. And so it was kind of fake, kind of a fake good. But
okay.
But it wasn't the A chord like this, it's the A chord like that, it's the D chord like that, not like this. And
right.
It's the way that,
like a real guitar player would play it.
Yeah, it's too much effort to play real chords.
Yeah, but I like that, and I think that, that authenticity, I think, is really important when you're watching a movie.
I think so too.
Especially a movie about musicians, right?
Yeah. Well, something that I learned that I think is really freaky is that most of the music editors aren't musicians. So how can they edit music? And that's why all this stuff's always out of time. Because they don't know it. In fact, I was really laughing. I can't tell you her name, but I met her, and there's a Neil Young movie that Jonathan Demme did, and he's literally strumming, but it's upbeats.
Oh.
So she's out half a frame, half of whatever beat off.
That's like clapping on the 1 and 3.
Yeah, it was crazy, and it's just wrong. It's because she didn't know.
Yeah.
So these are things that happened, and so we got hired for Ricky and the Flash. I was doing all the editing, the music editing. They would send me a clip, and I would cut. And those guys played live. It wasn't playback.
Yes.
So it's really them playing.
Yeah.
So I had to find what Rick solo he was doing from the 10 takes and cut that section and put it in. It was pretty crazy.
I've done stuff like that where you really have to, you've got so many clips of people and you have to just, for example, watch the fingers and just go, okay, that's, no. And then half the time, if the musicians are good enough, they'll, you'll think you're on the right take, and then halfway through you'll realize, oh shit.
They switch solos.
Yeah.
So, and, that was Bernie Worrell on keyboards, ridiculous, and Joe Vitale on drums.
Oh my God.
And Rick Rosas on bass and Rick Springfield. So it was a real band. It was real players. And Rick got sick. He went home and did some show or something. He got sick. When he came back, they couldn't rehearse because you can't get everybody sick on a film. So they filmed, I think, 2 days with me playing guitar. I was next to Meryl and I was playing Rick Springfield. It was really funny.
And just closed in on your hands or what?
No, me just jamming, whatever.
I love it.
So there's film somewhere. I've never seen it, but there's my photo.
I love it.
There I am beside Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Oh man, that's great.
So
let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
You start playing guitar as a teenager, right?
Yep.
Is it just like local bands, and then you end up in some? Because I know you ended up in studios and stuff. So how'd that all transpire?
My first band, my father had to drive me to rehearsals.
Of course.
Drive, right?
Right.
And I think it was 2 months after being in this band, and I mean I knew chords. That's all I knew. My dad drops me off. I schlep the amp in and the guitar in, and I set it up, and I look over, and there's another amp. And I go, what's that? And he goes, well, that's Jimmy's. And I go, well, who's Jimmy? Oh, he's the guitar player that's replacing you. I said, you couldn't have told me before my dad dropped me. Anyways, so that was my first harsh, you better be the best in the room or this could always happen.
Right.
So I really started studying hard, playing really, really a lot of guitar. So
did you take any formal lessons or anything?
I never did, no, but Howard showed me a couple things,
okay.
Which was worth everything. And he gave me, the Dino record, with Eric Clapton, John Mayall and the Blues Breakers featuring Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
And he said, learn every solo on this record, which I did.
That's a good exercise.
It's a very good exercise. And none of it's so fast that you can't learn it, but the technique and where he uses vibrato and where he bends. Clapton's kind of underrated by shredders. They don't really get.
He's got a great vibrato, that's for sure. He really does, yeah.
And so there was a lot of studying that. And that's kind of how I, sort of started becoming a better guitar player. And then I was in a band called Prodigy, and we were sort of the house band at Gazzari's. And when we were playing there, Van Halen came in and started playing there David Lee Roth asked if he could audition for our band. We had just lost our singer. I think he made a better move not staying with Van Halen. But there were a lot of really good musicians around in those days playing at the Whiskey, and so there's lots of guys to learn from. So I think that there was so much of young kids, old guys. Everybody could play so great. You felt bad if you couldn't do it. So there was a lot of pressure to get better.
So did you come up here in L.A.? Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, you were really in the frying pan from day one,
ridiculous.
Basically.
So the doorman at Gazzari's was Greg Ladani,
Okay.
who became a very famous mixing guy later,
Indeed,
an engineer.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, but he didn't know anything about it then. He was 18 years old, working at a club, and being the doorman.
Right.
So Greg one day called me and he said, listen, one day you're going to be too old and you're not going to be able to be on that side of the glass. I want to teach you how to be on this side of the glass.
Interesting.
Okay. Bend my arm.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked with him a couple days at the Complex, which was him and Massenberg's place. I worked at Sunset Sound with him one day. He would call me up. Hey, I'm at the Village. I'm working with, Fleetwood Mac. You want to come on?
Gee.
It was insane. It was insane.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched him engineer. He did Toto, and that's actually when I met Lukather, was through Greg.
Uh-huh.
But there's just the thing I feel sorry about kids now is that they don't get to see a real record being made. I mean,
well, not just that, but one of the things that I feel sorry for today's generation is that they don't really get to play together in a band.
Yeah.
Because how can you be a good engineer, a good producer, anything like that if you don't know what that whole vibe is like?
Yeah. You don't. And when our first day of rehearsal with Meryl on the Ricky and the Flash, I said to her, you're going to need some earplugs. Rick's deaf. He's going to play really loud. She goes, no, I'll be okay. They hit one chord. She comes running over. Okay. Because people don't know how powerful that is when you're standing on stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's Greg that sort of got me to sort of learn how to engineer first and sort of learn how to get on the other side of the glass. And I was still trying to be a player and not successfully, but then I got hired to do sessions. Then he gave me the idea. Greg said, why don't you offer friends bands that you'll work for free if they pay for the recording time and you'll get experience? Because I didn't have anywhere else to work. Mm-hmm. And I knew a bunch of local bands from Gazzari's and from the Whiskey and stuff, and they let me do it. So I recorded a bunch of those local bands for free, but at all sorts of different studios, and learned stuff. And then as we both talked about Cherokee, I walked into Cherokee to get an in-house production deal, and Bruce Robb, I guess he's the youngest brother. Was he?
Yeah, I thought Joe was the youngest,
Maybe
but Bruce was definitely. Dee was the older brother.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he said, bring me a tape, and I brought him a cassette tape. That's what we had. And he said, yeah, okay. And he started teaching me how to do some other things, slap back by aiming an amp at a corner and putting a 57. Yeah. It was, weird stuff.
Bruce and Dee both taught me so much, man.
Yeah, they knew a lot about miking and engineering stuff.
And they knew a lot about really doing it without the tricks, doing it without the trickery, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
The real, as you say, slap back, tape delay.
Yeah.
Dee was an absolutely fantastic tape splicer.
Yep.
He could take a 2-inch tape and do window edits, remove individual tracks and stuff.
Yeah, just the kick drums and stuff. Yeah, that was before, you couldn't punch in and out that fast.
Yeah, exactly.
And in between, I finally did get a record deal through Cherokee. They did get us signed to Mercury Records. Same time as Legs Diamond. We were kind of same time zone.
So this is like 80s big hair days.
Yeah, well, it was actually 77, I think.
Okay.
And so then we had a year gigs with them. We toured, we didn't make it. And so then we had to go get summer jobs, or anyways, intermediate jobs, till we could get another deal. Mm-hmm. And I got a job at West LA Music, and Dusty Wakeman, who worked...
Dusty's a dear friend, yes.
So he had Mad Dog, and I did a deal with him where he taught me engineering and I taught him karate, because I did karate since I was 5. So
Dusty and I share a birthday.
Oh yeah, yes. 31st. You just had it. Yeah, so happy birthday.
Thank you.
So I've had some Dusty did Dwight Yoakam and what's her name?
Oh, Lucinda Williams.
Lucinda Williams
Played with Lucinda for a while.
And Pete Anderson was the producer who he worked with, who was a great guitar player. Mm-hmm. So that was all that acoustic recording that I had no experience with.
Which is another completely different art form.
Yeah, so how to do 12-string and 6-string and a mandolin and like who the hell knew all that stuff.
Where to put a microphone for that stuff.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So I had that. I had Greg Ladani, who was kind of the king of rock. Mm-hmm. So those guys helped me, and then George Tutko, who worked for Roy Thomas Baker when I was at Cherokee, he let me set up some 57s on Journey Infinity record. So it was kind of around the creme de la creme.
Yeah.
I saw some really interesting, well, as you know, Cherokee, those guys were very experimental, did a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Roy Thomas Baker put the drums for the Cars record facing the wall, about 4 feet from the wall, and put PCMs on the wall. I thought, well, poor drummer's facing a wall, but it sounded unbelievable.
But RTV had some of the most amazing techniques, and he really did, to use a cliche, he really thought out of the box on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and he had great ears.
Yeah.
And how could that one guy keep finding all these great bands?
No kidding.
So,
but I also want to point out something else that I think deserves to be said here. You did all these sessions, right? You worked with all these different people. Obviously, one thing that you got early on that I think a lot of people don't get is the hang. I think because a lot of times, you'll get people who are really, really good, really knowledgeable, talented. Nobody wants to work with them. Why? Because they're a jerk. I have talked to so many people who will say, I'd rather work with somebody even who's not that talented if they're a good hang. And obviously you got that early on.
Well, I try. I think that for me, I always felt like I was very lucky to be where I was. And I didn't think it was like I was supposed to be there. I always felt like, did anybody check my ID? How did I get in here?
Yeah,
it's
imposter
crazy.
syndrome,
yeah,
right?
Right. It's crazy.
And that's something we all go through anyway, And I work with younger people now telling them the same thing. It's like, even people like us who have been in this business for decades, we still kind of wake up and go and pinch ourselves and go, to quote David Byrne, how did I get here?
It's crazy. We're doing stuff for Steve Vai, had Favored Nations, and I was running his studio in Hollywood at that time. Mm-hmm. And they signed, I guess Lukather and Carlton did a record in Japan live. They did 2 shows, 2 nights, so 4 shows altogether. And they brought it back, and Steve signed a deal with them that we would edit it and mix it. And so Vai actually started mixing it and then ran out of time and just said, Neil, here, go, finish. And so, which I did.
Trusted you enough to do it.
But I was sitting with Steve Lukather every day, and Luke would say, well, what do you think of that solo? I'm like, what do you mean, what do I think of that solo? Just that kind of stuff. It's insanity, because he is a normal guy and he wants your opinion. Mm-hmm. But, you never think about that. Why would he want my opinion? He's one of the greatest guitar players around. So,
absolutely. But we need that perspective. And, if you're trusted, if you're, again, comes down to not just being a good hang, but being somebody who people realize they can work with,
Right. And so early on, not only was I very happy to be there, but when I worked for Vai, you can't work fast enough. Vai is...
I've heard that about him.
He's not nice about it. He's gracious as hell, but it's a very fast pace. Mm-hmm. And he'll say, I'm going to lunch, mic up those 3 amps. Well, he has 3 mics per amp, and he wants them up and EQ'd and compressed and ready to go, not just mics on them. Mm-hmm. So you're like busting your ass, you got 1 hour, and you get it all up and running. And so because I was a guitar player, I could play and do that for him.
Get the sounds.
And then he'd come in and use it or not use it, whatever. He would then sit down and talk to me about, Whitesnake days or working with Zappa, So even though he needed to do work, there was a hang moment.
Yeah.
And so I think I learned it from him, and I learned it from Tutko would work very fast, and then he said, okay, now we can hang.
Yeah.
And then you have time to talk. And again, I loved the people I was working with. It was just so insane. I mean, Alan Holdsworth, on and on. just the list went on. The day I recorded Slash, we did a Yardbirds record, and they had guest guitar players, and Slash came over, and I mucked up his amps, and he was very happy with the sound, and he was playing this lick, extended lick, like da-da-da, da-da-da, it was going on, and then he made a mistake. And so we had to roll back and punch him in. He goes, oh my God, where do I start? I go, well, you were going da-da-da. He goes, what? And I go, this lick, and I picked up a guitar, da-da-da, you were playing that, right? And he goes, yeah. I said, okay, well, when you hear it, just start playing it and I'll punch you in. So it was that he was amazed that someone knew music as well as I did.
That you spoke guitar.
And then it made life easy for him.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was so gracious and so nice about it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have been happier recording him and Lukather and everybody. Vai is a particularly wonderful guy to work for. He's really, really great. And what a great guitar player. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
No kidding.
So
I think he and Buckethead are the two
ridiculous,
amazing guitar players most amazing guitar players I've heard in a long time.
Steve has ethics that's pretty crazy. He has a work ethic that's really hard to beat. He'll do a lick and diddy-out-and-do, diddy-out-and-do, like where's the last note, and he'll work on it for 20 minutes till it's what he hears, it's perfect, and then we record it.
The funny thing about that is there's guys who do that, and then when it comes time to actually record it, they can't do it again. So,
red light fever.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and another thing that you obviously were hip to right away is we had an old joke. We used to have an old joke, first put it in record and then set up the mics. Just like always be recording. Because you never know when you're going to get that magic. You know?
It's pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, your first take's your best take.
More often than not,
So, and then the other thing that I tried to do, if I was going to ever be good at something that maybe somebody else wasn't, I wanted to learn how to record drums better than anybody, because everybody always talked about how hard it was, and I didn't think it was that hard. I mean, I just maybe I have an insight into it or a love for it so much. I always loved drummers. I would die. I never got to record Cozy Powell. He was the one that slipped away, but I recorded a lot of other famous drummers that made my day so great. And they have a certain way of hitting, and there's a certain where to put the mics that always picks, that's kind of universal with how they play.
Yeah.
And I got into it, and so for a long time, that's how Frankie Benelli hired me, because he heard I could do John Bonham drums. And so then I had a long career with him. That's how I wound up being in Quiet Riot. I actually did his Frankie Benelli and Friends, which was his tribute to Led Zeppelin record.
Okay.
So it was Glenn Hughes over, and it was, Don Dokken, and it was, everybody he knew. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of wild. I did that at Vice Studio.
And one of the tricks I always found about recording drums that a lot of people don't realize is actually standing in the room. What does it sound like? Because everybody tries to get behind the glass, get behind the console, and play around with it. It's like the first trick is to go stand out there and see what it really sounds like, right?
Yeah. This is my $2 trick. You ready? The mics that go on top are not called over cymbals. They're called over heads, because it's supposed to be over the drummer's head.
Yes.
Not over the cymbal.
Yes.
Move your mics back, and you'll be so shocked how good the drums sound.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I got really good at was using a stereo mic as an overhead.
It's a perfect choice.
In fact, there's one, everybody loves the C24, but there's only 10 of them in the world, Shure makes a really nice VP88.
Oh, yeah.
You ever tried that?
No, I have not.
It's really nice, and you can even do a mid-side with it and
stuff,
wow.
Yeah, Dusty, when he first started, he turned me onto the Royer mics, and I got an SF12. That's what I use for.
Yeah. I love the Royer mics. Yeah.
But then, Dusty moved to Mojave, and I love Dusty, so now I'm using, the 200 black overheads, Cause
I use a Mojave on all of the podcasts I do from home and everything,
A great mic, and I just purchased an MA1000 that I did vocals with, which is their kind of 251.
Yeah.
The thing that's really interesting, like you said, when I put a mic up in front of a singer, the first thing I want to do is hear them sing in the room.
Exactly.
I don't know how people pick mics if they haven't heard the source. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You have 3 violinists; they're all different. So you
Yes.
got to pick. Listen to them. Okay, she needs a darker mic. He needs a brighter. Whatever.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough I did one record with Eddie Kramer. And he's probably one of the best miking guys I've ever seen.
He is. I did a record with him too, and just watching him,
pretty amazing.
And the thing about Eddie Kramer, that really surprised me more than anything else is how he just acts like he's doing nothing at all. You know, it's like it just comes so naturally to him.
Yeah,
You know?
and a lot of the Hendrix tricks, you know,
Yeah.
how he mic'd guitars was so different, and how he got a big sound out of a small situation was so different.
Out of these little tiny amplifiers, yeah,
and
exactly.
closed in with gobos and covered, and you know, I was, what, dude, where's the Marshall?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
but he'd make it sound like a wall of Marshalls. Yeah.
So he was the king of mic placement, and he's a guy that would EQ. He wasn't afraid to EQ, and I watched him crank away. And I went, okay. But then I watched Al Schmidt just move a mic and move a mic and move a mic and move a mic, and you know, it never touched the EQ. And they both have their merits. They both sound great.
Sure.
So I try and not go run to the EQ first. I try and move the mic a bunch, but I really, like you said, the fact that we were in bands, and then I remember what a drum set sounds like standing in front of it.
Yep.
And the drummer tunes his drums to where he sits, not where I sit.
Yes.
So that's the best spot.
That's another good point.
And that's why they put the one mic in the old days of the Beatles. That's where the drummer sounded, you know. And I know that, I think Bonham, they used to put a mic right here by his ear, because that's kind of what he heard. And a guitar amp, you know, I know close micing's the thing, but it's not really where a guitar amp sounds great. It really sounds great a little further away.
Yeah, yeah.
And bass amps too. I mean, sound has to sort of develop.
It has to bloom.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I've gotten into much further away miking as I got older.
Well, you know, I had a studio in Hamburg, Germany for several years.
What a great experience. Oh my God.
I lived in Germany, worked with German rock bands.
Color me jealous.
Yeah, well, but I tell you, the coolest thing about it was this was an old converted factory.
Wow.
And we had the downstairs building next door, and they were attached. We ran 300-foot mic cables down into that building and set up a Marshall down there and mic'd it at the other side of the room. It was like an 8-second reverb time. Like a natural chamber.
Okay.
And I learned so much about, you know, same kind of thing like you're talking about, just playing around with like moving the mic a little bit. And Al Schmidt, you know, you mentioned Al, who was like, you know, as close to a god as you can get in terms of recording. Yeah. I watched him work, and what I realized there, and you just mentioned it, even just turning the mic like a quarter of an inch makes just such a difference. Yeah. You know?
And you have to have mic'd enough stuff to know which way to turn it and where to go in.
Yes.
And you know, there's a funny thing about, you know, everybody talks about phase, and phase isn't always just 180, you know, and so everybody likes one of two ways of phase when it's a little out. They either like this way where it's brighter, or they like this way where it's darker.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm a darker dude, and Vai's a brighter dude. I'd go, it's out of phase, it's killing me. And he goes,
I love
it.
it.
Sounds so good. So that's with the under snare. And so I got the thing from Little Labs where you can adjust the phase so it's not just a click. And you can get that snare to be just enough dark for me or just enough bright for Vi or whatever.
Oh, I love that.
Wonderful thing. So
yeah, well, you know, and it's funny because these days when you mic a drum kit, I mean, almost everybody knows, you know, mic from under and over, right?
Yeah.
And I used to try like different mics all the time, and I settled on this one combination of mics. Are you familiar with the 441?
Yes.
Fantastic snare mic.
Yep.
Nobody uses it.
Yeah,
but, you know, it's
I think they used to use it at Cherokee, but I think people have
that's where I discovered it.
long since moved on from that mic. It's a very good sounding mic.
It's a great mic on snares, you know.
Mojave Audio made a little small snare mic that Dusty gave me, and then they made a tube version of which I never bought, and they don't make either one anymore. It's a 101.
Okay.
And it's super great. It's like a 57 with a little more top end.
Okay.
It's sort of like when they do the 57 and the 460 together. It's kind of somewhere in, you know. But I come from the school where they didn't mic the bottom of the snare. You know, when you had tape,
right,
you didn't have the
you
mic.
didn't have enough channels.
So it was all 18 toms were 2 tracks.
Yep.
Overheads and hat were the other 2 tracks.
Right.
And so they just had the one snare mic. And so that John Bonham snare sound is not a bottom snare sound. It's the overhead crack, you know.
Oh, so it's leakage into the overhead.
And that's the sound I love.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I learned how to do drums from overhead, and then everything else is just subsequent. Like, where's the snare coming from? Where's the top? It's really not supposed to be the source per se.
Well, when I lived in Europe, I also I did artist relations for Shure.
Oh, wow.
And so they gave me a bunch of mics, and the mic that I discovered that was really, really great on things like toms and stuff was they had the SM98.
I've never seen it. Wow.
It's a little tiny condenser mic.
Oh, the little
It's like,
thingies.
Yeah, little.
Yeah.
And then it has a little thing that's a polar adapter that makes it a hypercardioid. So if you put it on the toms, it doesn't pick up everything else around
Ringing
it.
and stuff. Oh, wow, what a great
it's
idea.
just beautiful.
Yeah.
Those
Cool.
are those are fun. And then of course they make these. It looks like a boundary mic, but it's actually not. The SM91.
Yeah,
It's this little flat
yeah.
thing,
Yeah,
And you throw a blanket and a kick drum, and you put that in there.
Yeah, and away you go.
And then you put another mic outside the kick. And again, when you have enough channels.
Yeah, exactly,
the
which we
thing.
now have. But
Yeah.
I remember seeing Bill Schnee use 251s on toms.
Yep.
And I was
Yep.
like, okay, you must really trust this drummer because $10,000 mic, sorry.
Yeah.
so
Now, Bill Schnee is another absolute genius. I have talked to him about stuff, and he just, blows me away with, again, it's like he was telling me about getting hired for the Steely Dan sessions. And he said, one of the things that they told me was, you're going to get a different drummer in here every 2 or 3 days,
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, and then, as you say, really like listen to each drummer's sound.
And those drums were so different, each guy, and some
Yeah.
would be really dull and tight, and some would be open. And I guess didn't Gad do some of those sessions?
A lot of them, yeah.
And he's just ridiculous. I think Lukather tells stories about him coming in like with a hangover, and they go, "How's he going to get through the session?" It's one take, wonder, and he's gone.
Yeah.
I got to record with J.R. Robinson. I recorded him a couple times. As far as the studio guys, and he's pretty ridiculous, and Terry Bozzio and Virgil Donati, who's ridiculous, and Vinny Appice. That's all the way in this end.
That's the other end of the spectrum, basically. Yeah.
And his kick drum so loud I couldn't sit in the room when he hit it. I had to.
I mean, he's an absolute animal.
Yeah.
And just amazing drummer, but definitely like big. You want to talk big sound.
Yeah. And so that was for me, the love of, if I was lucky at all, that we got to be at Cherokee, where you saw the Cars and Foreigner and Journey and whoever. And then I was with Steve, and I saw Skunk Baxter, and we had the Yardbirds, and we had Jeff Beck, and we had Steve Lukather, and we had all these. Stained started there. Steve's manager managed them in the beginning. All this crazy stuff, from metal to rap to hard rock you learn how to do all this different stuff. Nowadays, I don't know where you go to get that experience.
Well, and that's just it, because everybody's siloed now.
Yeah.
You don't have that. First of all, you don't have that experience of doing, like, I remember working at Cherokee where I had, sometimes 2-3 sessions in a day.
Yeah. And you had a rip down setup, rip down.
Yeah, and they were musically so different. I also worked, after Cherokee, I worked over at Paramount Studios.
Also a good place to do stuff.
And again, I'd start out the day with, overdubs on a country session, and then I'd be doing a rock session, then I'd be doing a hip hop session, and you have to, and you understand this too. The ethos is it's all about the song.
Yeah, always.
And then learning to listen like that,
And trying to make the artist be happy with what you're doing, and sort of you be invisible.
Yeah.
Because it's not my song, and it's not my band, and it's not supposed to sound like if I had written it, this is what I would have done.
Right.
It's their song. And so I'd pull up a guitar sound, and I would say, "Is this what you're hearing? Do you want it harder, brighter?" Eventually I stopped asking, because it seemed like I was more right than not, and I figured they'd just tell me if they didn't like it. So I stopped doing so much, how's it, and just went, okay, it's probably okay, until they say.
Now, to your point, though, a lot of times when they don't know how to ask for what they want.
Right.
And so again, being able to interpret that, I want my guitar to sound more brown, what does that mean?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Can you make it more blue? That's always fun.
Right.
I guess that means cold. I don't know.
Blue means cold, brown means warm.
Yeah, I guess.
But again, a lot of times they don't even have those words.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've really got to kind of read the room.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so in our day, nobody used to click. That was originally, there was no click involved.
Right.
And if there was, it was that stupid box that was really loud.
Oh, God,
you turned it on, remember that?
Yeah.
And then there was a thing for all you youngsters. There was a thing called Russian Dragon.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And if you're ahead of the click, it would show you. And if you were behind the click, it would show you. So that's a drummer could visually watch instead of having to have something in his head. But
which never really worked, by the way.
no, but that was the thought. But I just recorded a band without a click. And the drummer has a really good time, so I didn't have to worry about it. And I made sure everybody that the drums were loud in their headphone mixes so that they listened to that as a click. But I have guitar leakage in the overheads. You can listen to the whole band in the overheads. They got bass amp leaking. I got Hammond over in the corner leaking. It was the most fun record I've done. It was like the old days. No click. Nobody had headphones on. Everybody just sat in a room and played. They all could hear themselves because they were right by their instrument. Their amp. So the other thing I want to talk about, of course, is that I have a partner and we got a studio. We bought a 1912 opera house in a little town called Idaho Springs, Colorado. And it's 14,000 square feet. And the live room is, I think, 38 or 39 by 58 long with 15-foot ceilings. Pretty big. And I know a lot of studios now have little individual mixers for the guitar player can do his own mix. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. The board I got gives you two separate mixes besides my mix. So virtually you could have 3 different mixes. And if I can't make them happy with that, then I don't know what to do. But I want to put everybody in a room.
That's what I'm just going to ask you.
And only the drummer, if they want to use a click, the drummer hears the click, nobody else hears the click. They just play. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, and that's a lost art.
Me.
That's a really lost art, being able to put the whole band in a room like that.
Yeah.
There's a guy used to be a punk producer, John Cunaberti, up in the Bay Area, and he does these one mic recordings.
Wow.
With an AEA 88. He'll just use like front and back, left and right.
Yeah.
And you want somebody to be louder, they step forward.
Like the old days.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's something really, really wonderful about the idea of putting everybody in the room. Okay, in the case of what you're doing, obviously you're going to mic things a little separately, but that leakage is golden.
I know that these days people wipe out all the toms unless they're playing, but a drum set doesn't sound like a drum set unless there's tom leakage.
Yeah.
The snare sounds totally different if you erase the toms. It's horrible.
Yeah.
So in the first thing I ever worked on with Vai, he asked me to. He had George Massenburg automation, GML automation, in his API, and he said, "Okay, can you work the toms? Can you just mute them and pull them back?" And what he really wants is when you figure out where the fill is and you write them up, and then as the fill ends, you slowly pull it down,
right,
and then down to a good level where you can hear it leak,
right,
but
not out completely.
Not out completely.
Yeah.
And I was going mute because he said mute.
Yeah.
And he didn't mean that. So then I learned that from Steve, who had learned it from Eddie Kramer.
Of course.
So there you go. But the thought of goosing toms up and then pulling it back down, but not go away, goosing up a snare fill and bringing it back. Sometimes now guys just add the sample in during the fill and then take it out. It's not really the same, but it's easy to just add a channel. Vai used to work the guitars like with the little movements and the. If you look at Mick Gazowski, he's doing a thing and everybody's talking about what plugins. But if you look at all the writing of the automation that he does, nobody seems to ever notice that stuff.
Yeah,
he's the king of automation. That guy moves shit around everywhere.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's because when we played, your guitar is not constant.
Right, it's all about dynamics.
And we didn't play with compressors. We just amp loud, and you get quiet. You use your volume knob, your tone knob, pickup selector. On Les Pauls, you used to use the back pickup full and the front pickup just barely on, and that was your rhythm sound, and then click it to the back pickup for loud. Yeah, kids don't do any of that stuff now.
Yeah, or on a Telecaster, same thing, And I think that's, again, that comes down to like we didn't have all the options, and therefore we had to get more creative with what we had.
Yeah, and make decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you had 24 tracks to work with if you were lucky.
Yeah, if you were lucky.
And so yes, you had to make decisions. Yeah. You had to commit.
And I remember. I mean, even Steve only did 3 or 4 takes on tape because tape was $300.
Yeah, exactly.
So you only have so much of an album budget. At one point, Steve was using an 827 and 800 Studer locked together. And it was a pain in the butt. So we used to do a rough mix onto the 827, and Steve would do all his guitar overdubs, and then you'd lock them up for mixing.
Right.
Okay, but what a pain. And that only gave you 44 tracks, I mean,
Right,
46,
46 tracks,
because you have
yeah.
the 2 for Simpty. And now, I've literally, one of Steve's surround sound mixes had 135 tracks on it that I did for him. It's a 5-piece band.
And that's just it. What you're doing then is you're basically leaving all those decisions to later on.
Yeah.
You know,
And they're harder to make later on.
they are. They're harder to make, and you lack that objectivity. Whereas I think if you commit to stuff early on, I mean, Bill Schnee, told me about recording the 3-track. Where really it's like what you see is what you get, and that's it.
Exactly.
And okay, I mean, I understand how cool it must have been to go from that to an 8-track.
Oh my God, life changing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then 16, okay, 24. Yeah, that's when you start getting into less natural music production. And and I mean, I don't want to sound like a purist about it or anything, but there's an art to playing together. And the more options you have, the less you have that.
That's right, exactly. And even to have a bottom snare mic separate.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, there is a marriage that you like as the engineer, and when it's made, print it.
Yep.
But you're not going to change it later.
Yeah.
That's the one you love.
Yeah, or like miking the cabinet and a DI on the bass.
Yeah, it's,
same thing.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
like,
crazy.
It's cool to be able to do it, but they didn't do it back in the prehistoric days.
Yeah, and all my favorite records were done in a studio on the same board. I mean, this is an argument I've had with a lot of people. So a band would go into a room, so it's an environment with a certain sound to it, and the board had all the same mic pre's, so it has a certain sound to it.
Yep.
All has the same EQ, so it's a certain sound to it. And whether you used the EQ or you didn't, you pushed the board or you didn't, everybody was kind of in a level playing field.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a sound to that.
Yeah, it's an environment.
That's Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
There's no better sounding record for it just being 4 guys, playing a record. It's insane.
Well, and that's, there again, you talk about stuff like that, man, that was the room.
Yeah.
So much of it, what you talk about Cherokee, that big room at Cherokee.
Brilliant. And the A-range board, which was ridiculously sounding.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know now even Vai, in his new room, he's got a board, but then he's got a bunch of 500 series mic pre's. And he goes, well, I like these 2 on my guitars, and I like this one on the bass, and yes, it might be better specifically for his guitar. That might be the best sounding thing in the world. But then is this really the best snare drum that matches the best guitar?
Right.
And you get into this thing, like the best super bands aren't always the best sounding bands just because the guys are the best at their own instrument.
Right.
They may not gel.
Does the blend work?
Where a lot of bands, like Black Crowes, okay, that guitar player is not Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, but oh my God.
What a guitar player.
Right. And
no
what
question.
a sound. And the tone in his fingers. And that band, the sound. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's the...
Well, and that's the chemistry.
Yeah.
It's like you always talk about the Beatles, I mean, yes, there are better drummers technically than Ringo, but Ringo was the drummer for those songs with those other people.
Yep. And he played to the songs. He didn't just play drum parts.
Yeah.
And so, there's that too. And then there's guys like Virgil Donati who can actually play keyboards, and so when he plays, he knows what the keyboard's playing, and he can actually accent certain hits and stuff.
Yeah.
He's not just this guy.
That's a consciousness too of the other, and again, it comes down to playing together. Right.
Yeah.
And
so I know I sound like an old fart talking like this, but there are some really good young metal bands, hard rock bands that I really like, and I'm sure they don't do it like this. I'm sure they don't. And their records sound good, but they are not lovely to listen to day in and day out.
Well, sometimes it's too perfected.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of really, really great bands right now. What's the band I'm thinking of? Garbage. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic band. Really, every person in that band are incredibly talented. On the other hand, everything is honed to perfection.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's on the grid, and it's and they're great songs. Don't get me wrong.
No.
But again, it's a different way of making music.
Yeah, well, even the Foo Fighters leave stuff a little pushy and pulley.
Yeah.
And, you know, the
Yeah.
time is what makes you excited.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on a project for Line 6, and they were redoing a lot of the classics. And there were a couple of Black Sabbath songs that go from like 85 to 130 by the time
Oh,
the song
yeah.
is over, you know.
Yeah.
And we tried to record it at like 90 all the way across. It was so dull. It was,
You know, I talked to a friend of mine who did a lot of remixes back in the day, and he had gotten he was working on the remix for Brick House,
oh, wow.
the Commodore's tune, and he said, "Oh, you know, disco era. It's probably right. It's probably drum machines. Probably right on the grid." Nope.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all over the place. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things I got to do, which I thank Jeff Moscow for, he worked at Universal at the time, I got to mix, I think it was 13 or 16 Michael Jackson songs, so
Oh, wow.
Jackson 5. It was I'll Be There, ABC, and stuff. But the album's called Strip Mixes because we tore everybody out. And all that's there is the bass, some hand drums, the acoustic guitar that one of the brothers played, all the backgrounds from the brothers, and Michael.
Oh yeah, I mean some of that stuff, man. You
just
know, plenty of that old Motown stuff. It's just incredible. If you can strip that out,
Yeah,
you know,
it was incredible, really fun.
I Want You Back.
Yeah,
That is just. I mean, if you listen to those parts individually,
yeah.
oh my God,
But so Michael also did a cover of Ain't No Sunshine
really?
that I mixed on that record, and it's
Ooh.
unbelievable.
Oh, I
that
wanna
kid
hear
could
that.
sing.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
you can hear that it's a 47, and you can hear that it's a Fairchild. It's so compressed, but right in your face.
Yeah.
No tuning, no fixing, unbelievable pitch. It
Yeah.
just and the brothers sang great harmony. There was no fixing. It was just
Yeah.
it was a matter of just, you know, putting stuff together. I barely EQ'd.
So
James
much of that.
Jameson on bass with his thumb.
Yeah.
Really ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, so
Or
much of
second
that,
finger,
man.
right?
It's just
Second finger.
like, you know, just the players themselves. You know,
Yeah.
there's a certain magic to that. I mean, have you ever been to the Motown Studios?
No.
The room is not much bigger than the room we're in right now.
Oh, wow.
And if you think about the idea that they had like 12, 14 people in that room, you know,
yeah.
horn players and, you know, and everybody. And again, it's like, you want to be louder, you step up. You know, you
Right.
step back, things like that, you know.
Yeah,
And that art of making, of ensemble playing, that is something that I think you cannot replicate no matter how many tricks you use in multi-track.
No, it's true. It's true. And all the country stuff with all those people that sing together,
Yeah,
and whoever's louder steps back, like you said.
yeah,
Excuse me. So I'm friends with the guys in the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and to listen to them sing live is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
yeah.
And what they play is mistake proof. I've seen them a bunch of times. I went out on the first G3 tour, and speaking of which, I saw 40 shows. Joe Satriani made that many mistakes. You know, Vai goes for it. He lives kind of on the edge, and so every once in a while, you know, it'll be on the wrong string, or you know, because he's moving around. Joe kind of just stands there, but neither one made more than three. You know, Joe none. Steve maybe 5, 6 mistakes in 40 shows. I
Yeah.
mean, and you're talking about an hour and a half at those days. It was crazy. And Eric Johnson was the other guy. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and what's the old Miles Davis line about there are no mistakes? It's the note. That's the next note.
That's right.
You know, it's like
That's
how you
right.
recover, basically.
That's right. So, again, how did I get here? You know, why am I allowed to be here? It's just really insane.
But isn't it wonderful? You know, and I think part of why we're allowed to be here is because we do understand that ethos, and that's, you know, look, that's obviously been a cornerstone of your work and your career.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
to be able to do that kind of stuff.
I've been, like I said, I feel very, very grateful. I'm always shocked when somebody who doesn't really need to be nice to me is super nice to me. Not just nice, but super nice. Like, okay, this is a person that is just a good human. So one of the things that I'm going to have, the new studio is called River Sound, and the person who is putting this all together, Julie Stevens, who's an unbelievable designer and unbelievable human and has the highest IQ of anybody I've ever met, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
She said we have the no asshole rule. And so it could be anybody, and it could be the last 5 minutes of the session. You go off, we're done. You unplug, you give them their money back, see ya. Because I just don't want to do that anymore. I just want to be around people. I mean, we're not car salesmen.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And even if you mess up a song, nobody's dying. We can do another tape.
Right, we're not curing cancer here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's hard drive space now, which is cheap.
Yeah.
So I don't, there's no reason to go crazy,
Comes down to what we were talking about before, the hang.
Yeah.
Right?
So listen to this. I'm so proud of this. The live room is going to have heated floors.
Ooh.
And we expect you to take off your shoes, and we're going to have little booties that you put on with our logo on them. And super comfy, or playing your socks.
That's going to be some great photos right there.
Yeah. And just a real hang.
Oh, I'm looking forward to coming out and visiting.
Yeah, we're going to have definitely grand opening. You will be there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what we're going to have a couple of rooms where we're going to do like some kind of bass lessons, guitar lessons. So we'll have people come in and. But mostly I want to give back to kids because I think I'm going to try and teach a few interns instead of get a kid from school and then kind of, undo his bad habits and whatever. I'm going to try and find a couple of kids that live out near where the studio is and get them to just, here's a microphone, here's what you do, here's how you wrap a cable, here's like from ground up. And get them to be real engineers and know how to use automation on a board and how to EQ and how to move stuff around.
That's how I was hired at Cherokee. He said to me, the guy who hired me, Brett Yocum, Brett said to me,
Nice.
I don't want someone with experience because I don't want to have to unlearn.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when Bruce would show me stuff, he'd say, well, if you go ask Roy if he needs some help, the worst he'll do is he'll make you get him lunch, which is the worst he ever did. And so I had to get Roy lunch a couple times, but they would show me stuff. It was, they were happy to help.
Mm-hmm.
You don't find that too much anymore. People are not that happy to help. I mean, there are older guys that have, YouTube channels and they show a bunch of stuff and they talk about stuff.
But that's not the same.
It's not like being there with them and seeing the mic and hearing what it does and, and just talking theory.
And it's also, again, you don't have that same experience of everybody being around in a multi-room studio where maybe you run into somebody in the lounge and everything.
Right.
It's like everyone now works out of their house.
That's right.
Which is great for work, but it's not so great for learning.
No, it isn't. My band used to rehearse at Leeds, which was on Weddington in North Hollywood.
Yep.
Right near Energy, which is there now.
Yep.
And we were in the middle room, which was $35 an hour, I think, which was a lot of money for me in those days. And the big room was Van Halen.
Uh-huh.
And the little room was like this cover band I heard playing David Bowie covers. I was like, oh, God, it's okay, I guess. But, why would you, if you're doing covers, why would you practice? And I'm in the lounge later, and in walks David Bowie. He was in the little room because why waste the money? They were just getting it together. They were just starting to rehearse it. And how was I ever going to meet David Bowie?
Right.
Crazy. So it was things like that where you just happen to be around. And at Cherokee, Def Leppard was in the back room doing vocals, and in the front room,
I love that room.
In the front room was Journey,
Uh-huh.
and the two singers were in the lounge talking about. So how many vocals did you get? Oh, we got a whole song, and Joe Elliott said, yeah, we got one note, because he was with Mutt Lange, who's much harder to please.
Yeah, Mutt would spend days and days just getting a snare sound.
Yeah. So and his records are great. I can't.
Absolutely.
I watched George Massenburg mix a song, and he would go 2 bars at a time. And the whole band on 2 bars to the next 2 bars. It's not how I hear it. He's a brilliant mixer. He's one of the smartest idiots in life. Invented the parametric EQ. Come and give me a break.
Exactly.
But it's not how I work, and or a lot of people, I think. But I mean, I think that's when I learned he can make a great mix like this. And then there's Al Schmidt, who doesn't touch anything, and he makes a great mix.
Yeah.
And then there's Greg Ladani, who he would just micromanage panning and volumes in the middle of the record, not the outsides.
Yes.
That stayed the same.
Yeah.
The vocal and the little guitar thingies, that's kind of where he did his mix changes. I went, okay, all these guys
Whatever
are different.
works.
They're all great mixes. Yeah.
I mean, there are producers out there who, like Mutt Lange, or like Jeff Lynne is another example, who you hear a production of theirs, it's theirs.
Exactly.
And then, there are producers who really can work on one record, another record, and you have no idea because they really just they put no fingerprints on it.
They're the chameleons, yeah. I watched Andy Wallace do a couple mixes when I was in New York. Mm-hmm. Brilliant mixes, so quiet.
Yeah. And Matt Wallace is another one. Matt does these mixes, and you think like wow, you did John Hyatt and you did Faith No More.
Yeah, yeah,
You exactly. It's like, but
Yeah.
there are producers like that and engineers like that, and then as you say, there are people who really agonize over every two bars.
Yeah.
And there's no, that's the thing. The rule is rule number one. There's no rules.
Rule, yeah.
Right.
So the first time I ever was told about a compressor, I was told you compress first to control the dynamics, and then you EQ everything that the compressor ruins and bring it back to life.
Okay.
So okay.
All right.
So
That's
then,
one way.
So then, yeah, but I thought it was the way. I was a kid. That was the way.
Right.
And then Greg Ladani ran an EQ into the compressor, and he said, well, this way I jack up the highs, and the compressor stops it from hurting my ears, but I get a lot of height out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there's way two.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I now put two compressors on a vocal when I cut it, which was Paul Sabu was a guy I had written some songs with. He's the son of the actor from Sabu, from Jungle Book. Yeah. So, anyways, he did a two compressor thing, 4-to-1 and infinity, and you kind of grab more and just stop anything, and then you never have to look, and the vocal just stays in your face, and you never have to do anything. For rock singers, that was
Different
kind of a
method.
thing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And when I do it, I'm always amazed how great it sounds. It's one of those things. Like, so, you learn something, and then, I guess if I pulled it up and it didn't sound good, I wouldn't. I'd change it or do whatever. But for certain singers that you hear that are really aggressive and in your face, it keeps it that way, and they don't do much dynamics, and it just kind of just holds it in your face.
It's all about the song. It's all about what does this artist, song need. Yeah, and you understand that.
Yeah, so it's been fun. It's been a fun road. I want it to keep going. That's why I know at this age I go, so what's the dumbest thing I can do? I know, I'll open a studio.
Perfect. Well, let me wrap with my favorite question to wrap with.
Okay.
You've been in this a long, long time. Everything's changed.
Yep.
Industry, technology, everything. What do you tell 15-year-old you coming up now?
Oh, wow. Embrace change. Embrace change. Look backwards. Very important to look backwards, but embrace it, because I remember saying, the day I have to mix, when I have to have a computer, I'm done. What a stupid thing to say.
And here we are.
Here we are. What a dumb thing to say. But but I was an analog boy, and I just couldn't see it. And then I worked with Steve Vai, and he was using these huge amps, all the best stuff, and he used a little zoom thing for delay on his. I went, what?
Yeah.
You got rack mount. You got a 2290. What's this? He goes, it's a sound.
Exactly.
And
it's all just tools, right?
So that's what I would tell a 15-year-old. There's just, however you get it done, but don't be shy to jump forward. AI has got the bad thing. There might be some really cool stuff with AI in the future. We don't know.
It's just another tool.
Yep.
It's another instrument.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah. Neil Citron, thank you for being my guest.
No, thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
No, really fun.
Hey, I'm Daniel Keller. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join us each week for Insights in Sound.